Друзья, привет! Меня зовут Алексей Волк. Мы на моем YouTube-канале. Я очень рад вас видеть. В предыдущих видео я рассказывал, анонсировал, что мы позовем сегодня на интервью прекрасного адвоката Аят. И вот она пришла. И вот мы все у меня в гостях. Сегодня мы зададим все вопросы, которые вы писали в комментариях. Сегодня у нас будет прекрасная беседа. Мы встретились у меня дома, лайтово поболтать, выпить кофе и пообсуждать все, что вас интересует. Так что сегодня мы поспрашиваем все, Аят, что захотим, и получим все ответы на вопросы про Global Talent. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
See you.
I think to all the Russian speakers, I know привет, как дела?
Прекрасно.
A little bit. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on your channel. And I'm also looking forward to the questions.
Yeah, thank you so
See how
much.
it goes.
Thank you for coming. Pleasure to have you. Wow, so I think we should start with your personal story. How come you're here in the UK? And, well, I know because I have lots of friends who are lawyers, and I know that global talent is mostly for developers and people who work in like creative spheres or something, but lawyers sort of struggling. So how it feels to like help people with global talent visa, but what kind of visa do you have now, and how long are you in the UK?
Yeah, so I came actually as a student. So I came to do my master's here in the UK, and I decided to move here in December 2020 in the lockdown.
Fantastic. Perfect timing.
I know, that was very genius move on my side. And then I only had 6 months on the visa because I did the first semester back home. So I had 6 months to find an employer to switch. Although UK only, I think, opened up from lockdown July 2021.
True, yeah.
And my visa was ending in June 2021. So I ended up getting lucky, landed with the immigration firm in London, and they first sponsored me on the Tier 5 exchange. And then from the Tier 5, after I passed my probation, my license, then moved over to skilled worker. So I've been now on skilled worker almost 3 years. So I still have 2 more years to ILR, so I'm in the same boat with everybody in visas. I still have to count.
You feel us.
That's what I always explain to my clients. I'm like, oh no, I feel you when it comes to visa headache. I'm on visa myself. And I think immigration, it wasn't something I ever really looked into before. Because prior here, I was working in Houston, Texas. So I was working for a personal injury law firm there, Webster Law Firm. And before that, intellectual property rights. So my actual experience and my education and moving around was never in immigration. But I always related to immigration because, so I'm mixed. So my dad is Indonesian, my mom is Moroccan, but I was born in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
So immigration and me, we go hand in hand. Yes, I am.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm the living proof of peacefully cross borders, So when I came in, the first firm, they were handling immigration. They were doing asylum, refugee. I think the interest just sparked on my side, because the way I see it is, you don't knock it till you try it. So if I can try an area of law one time, I might as well try that one time. I'll find out whether I like it or maybe that's not cut out for me. So when I went for intellectual property rights, quickly realized I don't have any joy here. I feel with intellectual property rights was differentiating factors that it's very strictly papers and, logos and companies. But when you're going into, say, like immigration or human rights or refugee, there is that connection with people. So I work, as much as I still work with my laptop quite a lot, as you know, it is nice to also actually work with people. And, these are life-changing decisions. And, when it comes to actually the global talent itself, for the global talent, that's like the golden route for the UK. So they, as you're living proof of the global talent right now. So how are you enjoying yourself in the UK?
Oh, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, so it's a lot of freedom. The one side on the question of how do I handle global talent, since I am coming from legal and a lot of my clients will come to me with every area of talent, frankly, I have found so much entertainment in it for my personal self, because if, say, when I worked with you, I'm familiarizing myself with your expertise, which maybe I never had a chance to really look into before, understand. So for me to properly, present your evidence, or say a client who's in theater, a client who's a PhD researcher, I really have to somewhat learn, at least at the surface level, the essence. And then it becomes interesting, because sometimes I will have conversations with a client where I'll be like, this is not for the visa, but from my knowledge, why would you actually do it this way? I'm just curious, I get invested. But other than that, I think it's something new. It's something new each time. And each case is different. So there is no two people or two clients that would have the same files or the same career or even life story, frankly. So it is interesting to kind of...
I can't imagine how many good stories you have.
Yeah, it's almost like you just kind of like, I just hop into somebody's life briefly and just understand everything about them and then leave again.
That's it. So this is your party trick.
Yeah, I would say. I can, I'll fool you. Sometimes you'll explain something to me and you have before where I'm like, yeah, I totally understand that. After the call, go to Google and I'm like, hey, wait, he was explaining this. What is the basic of this first?
Yeah. Well, I see. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. Yeah, I mean, what you do, because you definitely have lots of stories to tell and you work with so many interesting people. That's great. Cool. Well,
So
yes, God, you switched to immigration from intellectual property. So I think the first one was, about all the changes that happened to global talent visa, because I would say for people from CIS countries and also for Russians and Ukrainians, most of the information on the internet was created when the war started, because basically, all of the immigration waves, they increased when the situation changed. So I'd say for right now, people who start collecting all the documents and preparing their portfolio for global talent, they're sort of confused because, there's lots of information on the internet that is a little outdated, and there are lots of cases. Even my case, like we did it almost 2 years ago. So for like law and for practice, that is pretty much. So lots of things changed through those 2 years. So the first question is, what should we highlight? Like what exactly changed? And we all know that lots of changes happened to Tech Nation. They started to transfer everything to Barclays, and then they canceled it, and then lots of things.
Transfer.
Maybe.
Yeah, so I think the first off to address is regarding the information on the internet, because I personally will also deal with that a lot when clients come to me and they'll tell me, I read this in this forum, I read this on YouTube, I read this here and there. What I would say, if you are looking into, what's required, if you're going for Tech Nation, strictly stick with the Tech Nation visa guide that is available on their website, as well as immigration rules, because these are the two that will actually have any impact. Because when it comes to a forum, that could be somebody's opinion, and if you listen to that opinion, that might not be the rule. So first off, I would say narrow down your internet research. There's a lot available on the internet, and not everything is helpful. So I would say, first start off strictly with your endorsing body. So if your Arts Council has their own visa guide. It's a PDF you can download from their website. PACT has their information. Royal Society have their information. Go strictly to their page and get the information from them alongside the immigration rules. Of course, YouTube videos are helpful. Obviously, I've had other YouTube videos before out there.
Especially ours. Very helpful.
The most important one. YouTube videos will help kind of tie it together, but I wouldn't say start with a YouTube video. Do your reading first, and it's going to be overwhelming information, but at least if you read it and then you watch a video, it will start to make sense to you. Forums, please don't. Please don't. No more forums. No more forums.
For 2020 or something.
Yeah, no more forums, please. The amount that I always get told from clients is, oh, I read this in the forum. They send me the link. And it's like Reddit or something. Come on. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes particularly to Tech Nation, I would say last year was all over the place. Because I'm pretty sure everyone's quite familiar. They made that announcement in February last year that they were going to close down, and that the deadline was March 31st. What happened there is I don't think they anticipated the volume of application that was going to come in because everybody was freaking out. You know, all the clients that I had we were preparing for tech, were rushing everything to meet this deadline now. And the high volume, I'm not sure what has happened inside Tech Nation's, you know, procedure working. We start to see a lot of kind of careless decisions, a lot of refusals. So the rate of refusal last year, I would say, was the highest since I started in immigration. Because prior this announcement, as I explained to you, I had maybe one Tech Nation refusal. Because of this announcement, this is collectively as a firm, we were seeing maybe 90% refused. Compared to before, we were seeing 95 always granted. So we always had that 5% that, of course, there is refusal because it's subjective. But I would say now they are returning to some sense of normalcy and consistency as well, where you can start to predict what they're looking for again. So, because I just had, actually just today, another Tech Nation decision that came in. This client in particular, we had just submitted last week. So this was the fastest turnaround that I've seen.
Yeah, that's right. Usually it takes like 3-4 weeks, right?
Yeah, I would always say the average is 4 to 6. But with Tech Nation, we know that they don't have a set time. I think it just comes down to the volume of application that they have that month. So if, say, you're submitting when everyone is submitting, then you might be waiting a little bit longer. Those who are on the graduate visa, I would say to start looking into potentially submitting this sooner, just because it is always predicted that right around the end, so coming January or August are usually the expiry dates for graduate visas. The month and 2 months before that, it will be a massive submission. So if you're going to wait till the end as well, then you're going to be looking at waiting the whole time period. But other than that, changes-wise, I would say just keep in mind their websites. Because their websites, especially with Tech Nation, if you were to scroll all the way down the guide, they will actually explain per date the changes that they've made to their guide. So you'll start to see it there, what to pay attention to. Because even for myself and, you know, my colleagues, we will always relook at the guides. Just because, you know, sometimes it has happened to me where they changed the rule 2 days before I submitted. And of course, I wasn't aware of that rule. But thankfully, usually if they do cut it that tight and the submission is that close, they will kind of give us that room to make any amendments that they require.
I see. And you also said that they changed some fees, right? I mean, not Tech Nation, but...
yes. So this is for the UK in general. So the IHS, which is the Immigration Health Surcharge, what this entails is more or less your medical insurance while you're in the UK. So this funding goes to the NHS. And before, if say you were going to do a 3-year visa, it was 624 per the year. So 624 times 3 would be your immigration health surcharge. Now, as of this year, it has now shot up to £1,035 per year. So that is something very important to keep in mind for, you know, those who are wishing to apply or come to the UK, is that the health surcharge has picked up and the visa fees have been increased too. So I think when you submitted Global Talent Stage 1 and Stage 2 was £600.
Yes.
Now it's around, I think, close to 800. So there has been increases on those fees as well.
I see. So it makes sense to do it as fast as we can.
Yeah, the ones on graduate visa.
That's right. Interesting. So, yeah, speaking about Arkansas, do they have any updates, any changes? Like, yeah, we got that we have to follow the visa guides. But as I know, as I heard from my colleagues and friends, that they changed the process for the television portfolios, right? So now it is a little more complicated than it was. Maybe it's not true. So yeah, what is your opinion on Arkansas?
So the endorsing body you're referring to is PACT. So television and film, you will submit to Arts Council, but they will direct your application straight to PACT. PACT haven't changed the rules in maybe 2-3 years.
It's just very complicated and
PACT is more, I would say, more rigid. because they have a list of awards. And if you don't have a nomination or award that they've recognized, then you don't cut it. And with PACT, it's important to know that there is no exceptional promise. So they will only be looking exceptional talent. So the good part is that if you qualify and, you get the exceptional talent, 3 years to settlement. Bad part is that if you're just starting off as a director, producer, or even actress, so PACT covers everything that has to do with film and television. So whether that is advertising, whether that's producing, lighting, actors, hosts, they all fall under PACT. So PACT will be strictly the list of notable recognition awards. Or if, say, for example, BAFTA, Emmy, Golden Globe, those, you fast track, you move up real quickly. But of course, we know those awards are not easy to come by. So I would say, PACT has always been the same rules. Arts Council, though, has been kind of changing little minor things in their rules. The one thing to take note, April every year, what I've noticed is that's when we will usually get update of rules. So given we just passed April, there has been some changes with Arts Council. They're all minuscule, so it's still the same 3 categories of media recognition, awards, and then proof of your work or your talent. So that's usually exhibitions, galleries, concerts, if you're a musician. The issue now that they've started to change around, and this is where you have to pay attention, is small changes. So like, for example, fashion. British Fashion Council have now said they don't need any letters from the UK. So that makes it easy. But other arts council, theater, acting, music, you need at least, that 1 letter from the UK if you're going for promise. If you're going for talent, you need 2 letters from the UK. So I think that's where I've noticed a lot of, say, my previous clients would struggle, because chances are if you're coming for the talent is you haven't lived here. It's sometimes a bit hard if you haven't lived here, you're not networked into the UK to find somebody who's considered an expert or recognized to sign off or agree to sign off. So that's where I would say to pay attention to these little things. Of course, Arts Council, you have the promise and the talent. Same categories, the threshold is lighter for promise. That's basically it. So for example, media recognition, if you were applying exceptional talent, you are required international recognition. If you're applying exceptional promise, national level will be sufficient. So but between the two comes down that 5 years mark. So are you in the first 5 years? You can go for promise. But if you are on year 6 or 7, although that's still early, that they'll put you straight in the talent category.
It's true. Maybe you have to cut your experience. First 2 years, I don't remember that. First light track.
Yeah, I remember working on weekends.
Yeah, that's good. So could you please specify what is combined arts? Because, lots of people, they are a little confused with this phrase, and at the same time, lots of musicians and people from theater, television, and everything, they looking to get global talent visa, but they have this giant category called combined arts, and people are a little confused. So would you please specify it? Yeah,
sure. So with Arts Council, because, bearing in mind, and, individuals who are asking this question, chances are artistic individuals. Art is usually a mix of different areas. If, say, you like music or you're a guitarist, chances are you probably play another instrument, or you might sing, or there might be something else to you, because with arts, it's rare that you're strictly one thing and one thing only. It's usually kind of a blend over different areas. So if, for example, theater, of course, they have their category. So theater, if you act in theater or you sing in theater, that's one. Music, their own category. Combined arts is basically they're leaving the room open if you are somewhere in this midpoint. So if you take, for example, a client I had. So she technically was photography, which was artistic, but she was mixing photography with sound, light, and music. So she was somewhat coming up with these productions, but it wasn't a film or television. So it was, she would have these in exhibitions where you can come and basically watch her photographs almost create a story. So that would be an ideal example for combined arts. It's that you're falling into different categories and, you don't completely fit in one. So you'll fall under that. Of course, they will assess your evidence. So regardless of, say, for example, I am a singer in theater, right? And I say I'm going for theater, but all my evidence actually is for me singing independently. They will see that and then judge me as a singer, not as theater. So endorsing bodies, especially Arts Council, they do have the ultimate say. So they will, even also when it comes to promise and talent, if I say I'm promise and I'm like, no, I'm new in my career, but I provide them evidence and they're looking at it and I have international recognition, I have awards, it's actually a very strong profile that is not considered a beginner or emerging into the industry, then they can grant me talent, although I said that I'm applying for promise.
Okay.
So they have that room.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. And in this case, for example, so if you have strong portfolio, but you applied as promising, so what is your regular practice? I mean, will they increase your application and will they possibly grant you exceptional talent visa?
Yeah, so they have the ultimate right. So even Tech Nation as well, Royal Society as well. So all the endorsing bodies, they reserve the right to change what
that's great.
you put. So if you put, oh, I'm talent, but they look at your profile and actually you're in the first 5 years, your evidence is not that strong, they can, instead of refusing you, just put you as a promise rather than a talent. So I've personally only seen it once that they've changed the decision, but of course that is different because I handle multiple clients. If a client comes to me with their files, I'll tell you where you fit best, and usually that's what's going to be decided. But it has happened once that we went for promise and they came back and gave us talent. So that's always a better news.
Yeah, right. I can imagine how happy your client was.
Yes.
That's great. Actually, speaking about global talent visa in general, I heard there are lots of conversations and lots of negotiations about immigration policy of the UK. So as you see, what is the idea of this visa? It's obvious that people who have global talent visa, they sort of, increase economy and they bring more money in the country and everything. But what do you think is the future of this visa? Will they, as your forecast? And of course, we cannot predict it. But what do you think? Will they reduce the number of visas that they issue each year, or what's the future that you see for this road?
I would say for the foreseeable future, I don't see them decreasing the quantity, because already as it is, there is no actual quota. Because with this route, you are bearing in mind that this is global talent. So what they're looking is for exceptional individuals that have recognition, are imminent, they're important, they're making changes, and they want to bring them to the UK. And the reason behind that, in my opinion, is that, UK is trying to compete with the world. It is an international kind of competition of which country is going to advance first. It's been the same way since the Cold War. It's just been this constant competition between countries, who's better than who. So UK, by having this route of global talent, in a way, they're taking the best talents from other countries and bringing them to the UK.
Which is very smart, isn't it?
So the same way, if you like sports or you watch, football, when they start to change players around different teams, it's like, if we take, Ronaldo, for example, he's playing in Saudi Arabia right now. That is a very big difference from where he's from, who he is. But Saudi saw talent and they wanted to compete against the rest of the world, so they took him. So that's kind of how UK is with the talent route. And especially the tech side, I think that's going to remain very prominent. Just because UK is trying to, their aim is to be the tech hub. They want to be the tech hub. Currently, they are the tech hub for, Europe. And I think this was last year, the year before, they're investing well over £29 billion into the tech industry, because they want, the whole artificial intelligence, all of these innovative that now has already, we've witnessed in front of our eyes how it's changed life. AI and all of the use of these, it's a little bit scary, in my opinion, a little bit scary how well AI can take over. It's starting to come into all those movies that you watch as a child.
So, have you actually found your clients using ChatGPT for evidences?
Yes. Because the thing is, I do a lot of drafting, right? I do a lot of writing. I have now seen enough of ChatGPT that before I put it in to see if it is ChatGPT, because you can detect it now, just from the writing structure, I can tell which one is ChatGPT now is written. So half the time I'll read a reference letter or something along those sides, and it's starting to sound a little bit ChatGPT. I just put it in, check, and yeah, confirm 99% is AI. And the significant part, tech, those going for tech, the guidance has now stipulated it that it is not allowed. So if they detect AI use, you're refused off the bat. So I would say, I mean, especially tech, don't play with AI.
Right.
I mean, honestly, any endorsing bodies, because my opinion when it comes to using AI for writing, because to be fair, I have used AI, but I've used ChatGPT to reply to emails. Sometimes I take an email and ask to reply and tell them how to write it. Sometimes it just saves time, you know. Those days where I'm looking at, you know, over 40 emails, it sometimes takes time to go through each one. But when it comes to the drafting in letters, the way I see it is almost on the same level of plagiarism. So why can't I pay you to write for me and I'll submit it for my university? Like, I will probably get a consequence there because it's not my written work. Basically, it's the same thing, because instead of paying you to do my writing, now I have artificial intelligence to do my writing. So I'm thinking it's not, you know, ChatGPT with drafting is not going to go further. You're going to see more institutions start to put down rules against it.
I see. That's so inspiring and so interesting that you trained your own neural network to recognize ChatGPT.
Honestly, if you read ChatGPT a couple of times, you start to see how they structure their sentence. They love to list things.
Yeah.
They will say, "Oh, I'll explain it in 3 ways."
Myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely recognize ChatGPT. So yeah, maybe actually the new version of it, the 4.0 or something like that.
4.0, I've seen.
Yeah, right. So maybe this one will be better. No?
I mean, I think it's because working on Global Town mainly, I do get a lot of documents from clients, and I was truthfully saying the past year since AI became, a bit more of a thing, I would say at least 90% of things I'll read is ChatGPT.
I see.
So it's half the time me just highlighting in red and going, please rewrite it. We cannot use it.
Invest your time. Do it yourself.
It's like, come, I'll sit with you on the table, okay? We can both do this together.
Well, yeah. I mean, it feels very different. So yeah, I would say for French visa, I mean, they don't restrict artificial intelligence, but I used it for like few reference letters, and your feeling is absolutely different. Like when you really invest your energy, when you invest your time, like as we did for Global Town, the UK, like you feel so satisfied when you get approval. Like, yes, I did such a big job, and here's the result. But when you just use AI, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. Thank you.
Because the other thing, who's out there better to speak on your strength than yourself? So the way I see it is there's a lot of, AI can put information together, but it's going to be surface level information. Certain aspects of an individual's backstory, their life, these little inputs, that cannot be copied, or, even if you were to pay somebody to write it, it cannot be presented that way. So I think remember when we worked together, you prepared the letters, and then I went to go and review them and change things around it. Because that's where, with especially Global Talent, we're trying to show you, basically. You are the talent. So we're trying to show who you are.
Sure.
So we're not just trying to show, oh, you carried out a good job. Cool, you did a good job. But then what else is there to you?
Yeah, right. Actually, do you have any advice on psychology, on your mindset? Because I do remember writing reference letters, especially, it requires so many, so much effort, to do.
Yeah.
Because you have to constantly prove to endorsing body that you're like the best in the world, that the thing that the UK's economy still exists without you is a mistake. Like, you have to be there. Do you have any advice from psychology point of view, like how to...
Yeah, no, I would say, because I think what everyone struggles with, especially the global talent, and what I have noticed, and where this is where I've helped a lot of clients, is, we're taught growing up in society, and, principles and morals is, the more you achieve, the more humble you have to be.
True.
So the more that you succeed. So there's a saying in Indonesia that my father used to tell me. It's, the rice field. So when the rice is growing, the rice will go back down to earth when it's full. The ones who stand straight up are the ones that didn't get that much rice. So those are the ones that are empty. So in other words, is taking that to life that, as you get more and you're gaining more and you're succeeding, you actually have to be humble more. But that now will start to hurt when you come to global talent, because it's not natural for someone to sit there and be like, I'm the best, like I am talent, keep up with me. Like no one's going to say that. We're talking about established, individuals with, high intellectual people. No one's going to sit there and be like, I'm the best. But sometimes we do need to push a little bit, and we do need to also emphasize how strong you are. So with those who are struggling on how to approach, say, a reference letter, easiest way is to put them in compartments. Think of them not as a one letter, think of them in sections. So for example, we know we need one paragraph just talking about the referee. That will be easy for you to start with, because that's not even talking about you. It's just talking about the person who is going to sign the letter, what their achievements are, why they're the expert. So that'll be easy to start. That's usually one paragraph. And then so there's maybe 4 compartments, I would say. You have about the referee, and then you have when you met the referee and how you guys work together. And then if there's projects, if you had a professional work relation, then you start talking about statistics, especially we're talking technician, they love numbers. Give as much statistics for results. So if you take, for example, the most simple sentence of, he was a great leader in the team. That's an okay sentence, but that sentence is not evidence. It won't hold any weight, because that is an opinion. But how to change an opinion to a fact is, he was a great leader in the team. This was demonstrated by how he took over this situation that led to this result. Now that's a fact. So there's no more room of, it's just my opinion that you're a nice leader. It's, you're a leader and you proved it, and this is how you proved it. So just think of it in that way when you're writing about yourself. And that way it's going to feel also less that you're just praising yourself, because it won't just be sentence of sentence that, this person's diligent, this person is organized. Back it with examples, and then that's the truth. So as someone who would have an issue about, talking about themselves, that would be one of your best approaches, and that makes a strong letter.
Absolutely. I love that comparison with the rice. It's romantic. Thank you. It's actually very patriarchal. That's good.
Yeah, so that.
So yeah, speaking about reference letters, there was a friend of mine who I think I already told this story on my YouTube channel. So a friend of mine, he was actually one of the guys who signed reference letter for me for my case, and it was like really extraordinary one. So he's a really talented one, but he decided to write all the reference letters himself and basically put no numbers. Like he's such a good guy. He's such a team leader. His communication skills are so good and blah blah blah. And yes, unfortunately, he was refused in his application, even though, I gave him your number.
I mean, I've seen that multiple times where clients, and some of them really exceptional. Like there has been some clients I've worked with where sometimes I get a bit intimidated, because I was like, oh my, this person is really there. You're sitting with me, you're talking, okay. Like sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming to just like sit there and be like, no, I'm just going to do what the work's required. But I have seen the ones who were very exceptional, and they got refused when they applied on their own. And when you look at it, when I obviously reviewed all the evidence, it was just presented not the right way. Because with the global talent, you have to remember that when these assessors are going to be looking at your evidence, they are not going to meet you. They don't know you as a person. They don't know who you are. Your whole life has to be explained in 10 pieces of paper. So what's in front of them is how they're going to assess you. So presentation is as equally, if not more, than just having the talent itself. Because like I said, I've had exceptional talents where they should have not even been questioned. They should have been just gone through just by their name. But those were refused. So those undeniable talent was refused on the basis of lack of presentation. So I would say presentation is heavily important, because remember, you're a piece of paper to the assessor. That's how you have to, as much as it doesn't sound nice to say that, but that's the fact, is that you're going to be a piece of paper. So you better make sure that piece of paper is going to present you the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they have no interviews, right? So it's just paper.
Nope. No interviews. They won't even have a phone call. They won't meet you in person. They won't call you. If anything, they might call a referee. But even in that event, with Technation, we haven't seen them contact any referees. We're assuming that it might be they'll contact if they think the letter might be fabricated or the referee might not be aware of this letter. Then they might. But I haven't had any situations where any referees were contacted.
That's interesting. Yeah, I was going to say that on the other hand, it is good that they have to follow the process in a very strict way. So yeah, like you have to present yourself, but at the same time, assessors on the other side, they have to like follow the process. They have to check all the points in your profile. So yeah,
I think the good part as well is because even when we get decision, and I think you would remember, we don't have any information on the assessor. We don't even have a caseworker ID or anything, because they try as much to keep it, separated, that there's no biasness that can get involved. Because if, say, for example, I get a case number, caseworker's like ID, and then I find out who this person is, and I become friends with this person, and I tell this person, hey, by the way, I'm submitting next week 2 clients, please keep an eye for these 2. So the good part, I think, I would say every other government kind of works that way, but the good part here is that it's there's no biasness allowed, because they don't have any way for us to even speak to Technation. Because if we try to contact Technation, we have to go through Home Office. So Technation doesn't actually speak to anybody that comes in for the global talent.
Nice. Yeah, so well, it's a good part of bureaucracy. That's that. So speaking about Technation, there are lots of developers who work for some companies that require them to sign NDA agreement, like non-disclosure. And so they might be talented, they did lots of great projects, but at the same time, they have no repositories to share, no products to share, because all of them are under non-disclosure agreement. So probably they can do something like public, right? Like public repositories or some non-benefit projects or anything. But what would you advise for?
Yeah, so I do actually face that a lot, especially clients coming from, big companies like Amazon, Meta. I had the ones from Microsoft, from Apple. Yeah, these companies are honestly the biggest headache to get any piece of information or document. Even the reference letters where we would mention statistics, a lot of it had to be changed to general percentage increases because they don't want numbers there. When it comes to proving the work that the applicant has done with these companies, the way that we've approached it is that in one evidence portfolio, we would include, say, for example, screenshots of emails that is already proving that you're working on this without showing any details. It's just saying that, oh, okay, this has been launched or something, just a number of emails, or if you have any Excel sheet that shows the whole breakdown of whose tasks is what for this project, we would include that. Plus, if there is any media recognition on the product. So it doesn't have to have your name, because chances are, if you're working for Amazon or these big companies, your name will never be listed. It's going to be CEO, company name. But if, given that we have the screenshot of the email, we have the media recognition of the same product that we've discussed was launched, then we add a letter of confirmation from somebody in the company just confirming. So it's not a letter of recommendation. It's not long. It's maximum 1 page. And basically just confirming that this letter is to serve to confirm that so-and-so individual is acting in this capacity and that they were responsible for the launch of this product. And then basically some responsibilities, duties that they had. And then when you put all three of it together, now you've tied it together that you've actually worked on that product without getting any paper from the company or showing your internal.
Great. Yeah, that's a really cool solution.
Yeah, so that's basically how we've been doing it. So even the one that I just mentioned earlier, the client that got granted today, is also working for one of these bigger companies. So optional criteria 3 for his impact in his work were all the files were in this order. That's the only way we managed to show anything because, frankly, we couldn't pull any contracts, any agreements, none of it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, on one hand, it is great to work for giant corporations like Apple, Amazon, or Microsoft, or companies like that. On the other hand, you can basically, you cannot even tell your friends what exactly you're working on right now.
Exactly.
So it is great, but it's complicated at the same time. Yeah, and speaking about open source projects, so is this like the key for this issue?
Yeah, so though open source, GitHub, all of these we can rely on, especially if it's codes. The one thing though that they will pay attention if we are to show a profile that is, your open source or your GitHub profile, they will look at how many did you have and then what's the interaction. So if we are to submit that, so if, say, for example, the clients worked on one code that he published it on one of these platforms, if it's only that one that's published and there's no actual interactions or anything that he was getting involved or collaborating on these platforms, that will not actually help us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, if you do something open source, you like make it public and you grant it to community, even if it is something useful, but it's not very popular, so it like...
Yeah, then it won't really. I mean, if you're going exceptional promise, that might be something we can show.
Okay.
But if we're going for exceptional talent, I would say that was not strong evidence. Because exceptional talent, you're basically playing with all the big boys.
Yeah.
You're talking about all the big seniors, VPs, they're all going for talent. So if you take, say, for example, a previous client of mine that was VP of one of Google's headquarters, he went for exceptional talent. So take his profile and say that I've just given proof that, okay, I put this out there, but no one's interacted with it. Do you see how the scale? It will be disregarded.
Oh, that's interesting. Cause I think there are lots of developers who just try to, contribute in some open source solution and then use it as...
No, I mean, I would say if they're looking, to do that, then be active with it. Don't just post, say, like one thing just for the sake of this global talent visa, because that will be obvious to them. And the one thing that TechNation has explained as well is that any evidence that they can identify is made purely for the basis of a visa, they'll have an issue with. So, like, for example, patents as well. If you just submitted a patent just to say you submitted one for the visa, they'll have an issue with that.
I see.
So we don't want to show that we're basically curating the career.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, thank you. That's environment. No, I mean, for real, because I was talking to many developers and I'm like, yeah, but like I want global talent visa, but it requires some open source solutions.
The one thing I'll say, if anyone coming to you from the tech side, public profile. Now, that's not a mandatory if you see their guide, but the likelihood of you getting a global talent without a public profile is you're talking less than 5% now.
But we're talking LinkedIn, we're talking articles.
So public profile, that entails media recognition, speaking at conferences, panel speaking, judging, competitions, mentoring. So just understand it in the context of what have you done outside of your 9 to 5. So what contributions have you made outside?
I see.
So public profile, definitely. Frankly, truthfully right now, I personally would not advise to submit any of my clients if I don't see a public profile. So, but the good part is public profile can be built.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I do work closely with some clients to kind of coach and guide them to make sure that they are not wasting their time on the wrong evidence, because these evidence take time to gather. And imagine you spent 3 months to give me a piece of paper and I looked at it and I said, actually, this doesn't count. It's going to be a little frustrating.
True.
So to me, it's always easier if I know someone has to build a public profile. Okay, before you approach or do anything, run everything by me. We'll have meetings the whole time, and then I'll point you in direction of which one will be a stronger evidence. So that tends to be helpful.
Great. So there was another very specific question about tuberculosis test for stage 2. So for second part, global talent application, we need lots of evidences as well, but the main one is endorsement from your endorsement body. And you also need some like bank statements, right? And you need some information.
Bank statement? You don't need bank statement for stage 2.
Let's cut this question.
No, that's actually, the fact that you mentioned, that's a good point, because that's the one perk to the global talent.
Okay.
There's no financial and there's no English requirement. So you don't even have to speak English to get global talent. So that's where, because every other visa, you will need to show your IELTS for the UK. Global talent. Yeah. No English, no finances. Basically, all you need to show is, your passport, where your residence is, proof of address, and then the endorsement letter.
Great. Yeah, I think we submitted my bank statements, but it was, company's bank statements. And
but that was for the endorsement.
Yeah, for the endorsement. And it's just because I was like a business developer for tech.
Yeah, no. So if, so there's like, say for the clients who are running their own startups or launched their own companies, we would definitely want to show your revenue. We would want to show incorporation, article association, all of the mandatory documents. And then if there was any investments into the company, any VC, all of these sides we would want to show if you hold a company. But for the visa itself, you don't need to show any actual personal finances. So, because with every other route here, they will always say you have to hold minimum around, I think, 1,280 pounds for minimum 28 days before you submit. So they have those requirements for every other visa. But global talent is, you don't have to even show them that you're making money, and you don't even have to speak English, frankly. But when you come here, you have to learn English, because your indefinite leave to remain, you require the English test.
And you also have to learn all the wives of Harry VIII for life in
the UK test. Yes.
Yeah, I actually passed it like 2 months ago. So yeah, and then I have 1 more year before ILR, but I was like, I want to be confident that I can just apply for ILR.
Yeah. Because life in the UK is, there's no expiry to it. Yeah. So that's the best part. Whenever you have time, just get it done.
And it's interesting to learn all the history of the UK. So yeah, speaking about stage 2 and tuberculosis test, can you, are there any limitations for countries? And is there any connection between the country where you apply for stage 2 and the country where you do your tuberculosis test? Can you apply with tests from different country?
So I did read this on the comments of your YouTube video, actually. I did read this particular one. So I was expecting to see this one come up. So I did look into it, because I frankly rarely ever had the situation, because usually they'll do it in the country they're applying from. But looking into it, the rule with the tuberculosis is that, say, for example, you stayed in the UK for 6 months and you flew to Russia, or one of the countries that needs TB, you just flew there just to do your entry clearance to come back, you technically wouldn't have to submit a tuberculosis. Because what they're going to look into is your last 6 months of residence. So with that being said, if you are applying from, say, you had your tuberculosis done in another country, which would have required a tuberculosis, and you use that same one within, a week or 2 being back in your home country, there'll be no issue. But bearing in mind that the tuberculosis certificate is the one that's recognized by UK. So on gov.uk, they will have a list of the countries for the tuberculosis. And then if you click on the country, they will list out the centers they recognize. So as long as your certificate is coming from a center that's listed, then you can use it for stage 2.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to do my own little look into that as well. So like, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. I can see where it's coming from, because, lots of people, especially from Russia, when the war started, they moved to some other CIS countries.
Yeah.
Armenia, Kazakhstan, and countries like that.
I think in Georgia, a lot of my clients were in Georgia, because I think they did that 1 year permission to be there.
Yeah. And you, in Russia, you have 2 different kind of passports. So you have international one and like the one for citizens. So yeah, and Georgia and Armenia, and I think Kazakhstan as well, they allow to cross the border with your just Russian passport. No,
so the internal passport.
Yeah, the internal passport. So that's also the reason why that many.
It's easy
to that.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and speaking about the application for global talent from different countries. So can you and your dependents apply from different territories?
Yes.
Okay.
So when it comes to dependents, basically, say, for example, if you had a dependent, right, you can apply and your dependent can apply 1 year later. It's not that they have to submit the same time and travel from the same country. The main rule of thumb, just to keep in mind when it comes to applying from other countries, is you need that minimum 6 months right to be in that country. So as long as you have minimum 6 months right to be there, you can apply from there for entry clearance.
Okay, fantastic. And technically they go as different applicants, right? So you and your dependent are like two absolutely different applications, so you can submit them from different countries.
Yeah, so I mean, the important one will be the main applicant, because of course if the main one doesn't get the visa, the dependents won't get decided. So the main would be that the person holding the global talent has the global talent visa. Then dependents can apply from anywhere at any other time, as long as within the time of his or her visa being granted. So the one thing to bear in mind, if say, you get the global talent and you apply for a 2-year visa, then your dependents can only apply for a maximum of a 2-year visa. So they will be limited by the expiry of the main applicant.
Okay, I see. And speaking about the right to be in the country where you apply from, so, lots of actually CIS countries, they have those things called visa runs. So like technically they have some limitations for, the time that you can be in the country, and then you can do visa run at least for 1 day. They come back and this term starts to, count from the very beginning. And this is something that they, on one hand, officially recommend people to do. On the other hand, this is not very clear in their law. So the question is, will the UK officer who works on your visa application, will they count all the dates and do they really care about?
The main thing, the main thing the UK is going to look at is, as long as you didn't break any laws in that other country or get, arrested. When it comes to criminal convictions or refusals, this is where UK will really care, because they're going to really look into this as a threat to public safety. If they think that you're not a very reliable or not good character type of person. When it comes to these visa runs, I'm familiar with them as well, because I think almost every kind of group of countries will have that one country people run to renew your visa, stay, and come back in again. By doing that and leaving, then technically you never overstayed. So but that's the thing I would say, to look into that country. If you're saying they officially advise it, then it should be fine. Main thing is that you didn't actually break a law or, get arrested for breaking a law. Because then that will really make a difference when UK is looking at your application. But if it's not illegal, it's recommended, you're not overstaying any period of time. And at the time of submission, you have the residence, because I think I read that one. He has the residence for 6 months. Right. So because he has a residence for 6 months, he can apply entry clearance from that country. So it wouldn't be an issue. Just, again, main thing, make sure there is no court orders against you that you're not aware of.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Perfect. So, and the last question is from my favorite viewer, me. The most loyal one. So, would you please help me to clarify terms for indefinite leave to remain? So, if you have exceptional global talent visa, the one that allows you to apply up to 3 years, then you get your indefinite leave to remain after 3 years. But then there is a little misunderstanding, and it is a little complicated, that on one hand, you can apply for your British passport after 5 years of being here in the UK. On the other hand, you can apply for British passport after a year of
spend once on ILR.
On ILR. So do we go with the fastest one, or do we have to wait for 5 years?
I mean, I know I know the answer you want. Unfortunately, it is 5 years. So you would have to complete 5 years, because with naturalization, that's a whole different application to ILR. So ILR will follow the terms of your visa, which is 3 years ILR. Naturalization doesn't follow the terms of global talent. Naturalization is a whole separate application. So for that one, the main thing is that you have ILR and you've held it for a minimum of 1 year. So with naturalization, it is 5 years residence. So you would need to spend 2 years on your ILR, which, I mean, ILR is more or less similar to naturalization. It's just, yeah.
No voter right, but
Yeah.
we also don't have elections in Russia, so it's all right.
Ooh, and be quiet. I plead the fifth.
Right. Oh, it's a very common joke,
I know.
Societies.
Yeah, but-
oh, they have elections here in the UK, but they don't have water. Oh, we never had it.
No, but see, that's the thing. If, Russians would say it, Ukrainians want to say it, they can say it. Myself, I sit there going,
That's dope.
yeah, you're entitled to what you want to think. Like, I can't voice my opinion or I'm going to be in trouble.
So,
But yeah, so the one thing I will say to bear in mind for yourself as well, because I know this is towards you. Yeah. So basically towards your situation, what you need to bear in mind, and whoever does come on the exceptional talent, is when you're on the global talent visa, what is your permitted absence?
I don't know.
I'm doing a pop quiz right now with you. You're meant to know this. As in, how many days a year are you allowed to be outside of the UK?
Oh, yeah, no, I do remember this one. So I think before indefinite leave to remain, it's 180. But after, when you apply for citizenship, it must be not more than 90 days. So I track my days and I just try to keep every year less.
Okay, now this is where you need to pay attention to one more thing. Because that is correct. With the global talent visa, 180 days in any 12-month period. And then the last year before your ILR, 90 days. But naturalization, they have a limit. See, I keep mixing it, whether it's 548 or 458 days total over 5 years. So if you do the math and count, if you do 180 days for 3 years, you would have exceeded. And then naturalization, you'll have a problem because you have more absences. So the one thing to keep in mind, if you're looking for naturalization, this goes for everyone, stay in line with the absences required for naturalization, not for ILR. Because ILR will give you a good 200 more days, which that extra 200 more days, you will have an issue at naturalization.
I see.
So just keep in mind your absences. I'll reconfirm it. I mean, easy. You can quickly check it. Naturalization, absences. It's either 458 or 548. For some reason, my brain keeps switching those two numbers.
Let's see. Yeah, we can check it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's 459.
Yeah.
So something like that. Nice. Yeah. Anyway, I try to just live in London. I mean, amazing. Actually, that's the other thing about global talent visa. So I heard so many stories of people who got the visa and then they keep on living in Turkey, for example, or some CIS countries or anywhere in Europe because they have other visas.
Yeah.
And then they try to come to the UK and like renew their BRP or renew their visa or apply for ILR or anything. And of course, they face lots of troubles because, yeah, they're not here in the country. And yeah, so what would be your advice? Like, as long as you have the visa, is it like all right to wait for a few years before you move to the UK, or what's like the best way to do it?
So I would say this would determine on each person what their end goal is. So if somebody's end goal is to get the passport, then I would say, okay, we're going to need to really monitor the absences. When you get the entry clearance, the validity of the entry clearance is only 3 months. So you do have to enter the country within 3 months of getting the visa. Because if you exceed 3 months, then the entry clearance will be invalid and expired. Then you're looking at probably submitting stage 2 all over again. If your endorsement is still valid. If your endorsement also has lapsed the validity date, then you're going to restart stage 1, stage 2. So it would be, yeah, that one thing is to bear in mind. When you get the visa, 3 months, get inside the country, at least get your BRP.
Come see Big Ben.
Basically. I was going to say Queen Elizabeth. I went, oh, never mind. So 3 months, get inside, get the BRP. If you still need to finish some things back home to tie up some loose ends, you can then fly in and out as much as you want. Again, bear in mind that 180 days, if your aim is only ILR, because there is some countries' passport is strong enough that they don't want a new passport. They just want the settlement. If you just want settlement, then stick to 180 days and 12-month period, 90 days in the last year. If you want passport, it's the other absence list, the 400 or 500 one. The other one to also bear in mind, this whole traveling, is that if you're outside the country more than 6 months, you can potentially break your continuous residence. So then when you want to do ILR, they'll say that you broke residence here. So your time clock will start again. So you don't want to be out of the country for more than 6 months.
Guys, just if you have the visa, just live in the UK and apply for citizenship then.
I mean, at least ILR, I would say. Yeah.
So, and actually speaking about BRP, like it's not only for global talent holders, but yeah, for everybody who has BRP.
Expires 31st of December this year.
Yeah, right. So like some of the people, they already applied for online BRP. Yeah, some don't really know what to do with it. So what is your opinion or your recommendations of the lower?
Definitely to make sure you have that online account with UKVI. You definitely need that account because what they're going to do is after December 31st, so going to next year, there'll be no more physical BRP cards. So your right to rent, your right to work, they've already introduced that from last year. I think you would have seen that as well, where you just put in your details, they'll pull up your code. So what they're trying to do is move everything online. So I would say the sooner you can get to it, the better, just because it's not complicated, but it might be one of these tasks you'll forget about. And if you forget about it and you pass the day, you're trying to fly back into the UK, you don't have an online account. Now, how are they going to prove you're going to have a headache at the border? But so I would say, because they have started this month to email. I think you probably received email as well.
No, not yet, but I've already created the UK account.
Yeah, so they have started to send emails to the majority of the clients, all informing now that you need to have your online account sorted. So I would say do it as sooner than later, and then if you forget about it, it's fine if you forget it if you've done it. Because then you don't have to like come back on the plane, realize I don't actually have an account. How am I getting back inside the country? I'm sure there's going to be leeway for the first year. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of people who are going to miss the opening account by December. So I am expecting there's going to be leeways in the transition period.
Perfect. And speaking about, I think the last question about indefinite leave to remain. So for Global Talent Road, if you apply for indefinite leave to remain, you have to pass Life in the UK test. And yeah, there is also, it is also a little confusing because I think before some year in the past, Life in the UK test also guaranteed that you know English English good enough to like work with this test to pass it. So you didn't have to pass like another English test. And how it works for right now? Like, do we need to pass IELTS or any?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would need a English language certificate and the Life in UK certificate.
Separately in different documents. Okay. Fantastic.
So it should, I mean, honestly, if you've lived, by the time you're coming to ILR, you would have either been in the country for 3 years up to 5 years. So chances are the English shouldn't be that.
And it's just B1, right? I mean, so it is pretty.
Yeah. So it's just honestly just mid-level English. You don't need to have very advanced English.
Yeah. Right. Perfect. Well, hope so. Thank you for watching, guys. It's a pleasure to have you here on my YouTube channel. And thank you so much, Ayat. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, you gave so important information. It's really enlightenment. So
I mean, honestly, if you want me to talk about global talent, each endorsing body I can spend 2 hours talking about. So if there's if there's any particular questions, you can always comment, like and subscribe.
Now we are talking.
There you go.
Thank you, guys. So see you, like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.